Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Startup Network podcast. Joining me today is Allison Byers, a founder, investor, and capital access advocate working to build a funding system that includes the rest of us. She's the founder of Scroobious, a relationship-first capital access platform, author of the book Fundraising for the Rest of Us, co-authored California's landmark Fair Investment Practices by Venture Capital Companies Law, and serves on multiple boards. Allison, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you for being here. As I mentioned before we began recording, I'm very excited to have you on and talk about everything that you've learned and done as a founder and investor. And so that's where I'd love to start, is to have you introduce yourself to our listeners and share what you're working on today.
Sure, I will do the abridged version of my origin story for our listeners because I've been around for a while. But I originally became really passionate about entrepreneurship with my last company, and mainly because it is what allowed me to have a career and a professional identity as someone who was a new mother and forced out of the traditional workforce. So that was kind of my first love of entrepreneurship was, oh, this is a career I can have and have sustainability. And I did so by transitioning from about a decade-long consulting career into co-founding a medical device startup that we spun out of MIT. And I was the business one on the team, joined scientific co-founders. Uh, didn't know any of the things I know now, right? Was not in like startup land. I didn't even know that was a thing. And we did raise about $10 million for that company from all kinds of sources of capital. We brought an FDA registered product to market. We were in peer-reviewed medical journals, all the things. And then I really was challenged to raise our bigger round of funding, what's called the Series B round of funding. And we ended up selling the company early before what, we had originally wanted or strategized in something that's called an asset sale, which, I'm happy to go deeper into anything. It's obviously all in the book too, but lots of exits or exited founders have experiences like this where it's non-preferable, but they don't speak about it as openly as you might like. So it was not the exit that you would want. And after that transaction happened, the team that bought the company or bought our assets just happened to be led by all men and just happened to raise $55 million. So, I skimmed through my origin story, but obviously it was a very traumatic experience. I was raising two little kids at the time. I burned out mentally and physically, really, really a hard period of my life. But when that did happen, I took it as an opportunity to research the field of investing and venture capital and fundraising and pitching because I had to understand what I did wrong. And it was the research that opened my eyes to the fact that I didn't do anything wrong. I just had no idea about the system I had been playing in. And so many founders don't know that either. And they do what I did and internalized everything when really we should be evaluating where are we playing and how do we operate differently. So that's why I do everything I do now. I've dedicated myself to working toward a different and more equitable access to innovation capital. I do that with my company, Scroobious. I did, wrote the book under that purpose, work on policy, advocacy, all the things toward that mission.
And I think after going through such a difficult, and I can't even imagine the level of frustration that moment that happened within your career, I think it's incredibly inspiring that you took that difficult point and used that as your catalyst to make sure that it changes for the next generation of founders. So I love that you've used that for good, and I imagine that you've probably feel a huge level of gratification of the work that's come from that.
It is very fulfilling, very difficult, but very fulfilling work. But yes, I do this for social mission reasons, but also because when you have something that is so inequitable, let's take venture capital, for instance. When I research the space, one of the statistics that just hits you in the face is that only right now, 0.6% of venture capital dollars go to women founding teams in the US nationally. I mean, that's almost not accessible by
Mhm.
anyone, which can be really infuriating and make you feel, rage, sad, whatever you want. But it's liberating because you understand, oh, there is so much opportunity that they are missing. Oh my God, what a waste of money and innovation and progress. Let's go capture it somewhere else. And
Mhm.
so that powers what I do too, is just the economic availability of involvement of people outside of a system that isn't capturing what they could.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about that more. I'd love if you could give us a dive into Scroobious and exactly what you do and the types of people that you support.
Yeah. So the vision behind Scroobius is that any idea that is going to change the world or make a difference in any capacity needs the right people in the room. It needs the right people behind it. And as we just talked about, for far too long, those relationships has formed in rooms that most people, the rest of us, have not been invited into. So that's what Scroobius is working on changing. And we do that with the knowledge that the check, the transaction of capital, comes after relationships and trust are formed. It's actually a lagging indicator, but we all focus on it, on that money transaction. And if we don't look at everything that leads up to it, we're missing it and we're not going to change the system, right? When that team raised $55 million, they didn't just do it through cold emails. They already had the relationship that led to
Mhm.
the 55 million. It already existed, and I didn't have that. So Scroobius helps connect founders and investors and ecosystem drivers and partners in a way that is very human forward, very relationship driven before an ask is on the table,
Mhm.
before there is an urgent need, because that's just not how it works in reality. So we're strengthening those networks and those ecosystems and creating new rooms with people who are meant to back and support each other, but they have to establish the trust first, and then the access follows.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you do that through like one-to-one introductions or like what's the format that this typically follows?
Yeah, so it's a really vibrant platform. We are video forward. It is based on individuals, on one-to-one connections and interactions. We do curate who you should know based on your current needs, not just pitching to an investor, but what kind of access do you need? Do you need relationships? Do you need advisors? Do you need to connect with potential customers? Do you need someone who comes from a specific industry or has regulatory knowledge? Do you just want feedback? Do you want a peer? People can want all kinds of things that aren't the check. And it makes it so much easier for those who have to help if they know exactly what that help is. And something that's really cool on our platform is we have what's called spaces. So for programs like accelerators, university entrepreneurship centers, angel networks, programs that have cohorts of people or people in different groups, they have their own space on our platform to leverage this curation and these human-based profiles to strengthen their own network. And often they find those relationships that should happen, that increase the odds of success, are already in their own network. They just don't know each other because they don't have the
Mhm.
relationship infrastructure. So we serve those spaces, those organizations, and we serve individuals and we connect them amongst each other to become a network of networks where people can meet in very low pressure ways, always exposing why they are meeting so they know the meaning behind the connection.
I think that is like one of the most important things. And I think I actually commented this on one of your recent LinkedIn posts, but the idea of connections where it's like having the why, like, why is this connection happening? No one wants to just get an introduction email, but there's no context between why these two people are being brought together. So I love that Scroobius has it at the forefront. Is like, here's the why, here's the ask, here's what this person needs, and this is the type of person that can support them.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just about like kismet discovery. We
Hmm.
have a lot of, now we've been around for 6 years, so we do have a lot of success stories where we know of funding that happened because of discovery on the platform from people who are all over the country who would never have met, some international. But like a fun example is one of the things that we ask people to do is to record a really short, just fun fact about themselves. Just, not none of this is formal, it's all informal. Just tell us a fun fact, nothing to do with your business, with your ask, any of that. And we had someone reach out to an investor on the platform and they connected over food. They connected over their fun facts, and it led to an investment because they were
Wow.
drawn to each other, right? Like the relationship and the trust again is what leads to the access and leads to the capital. And there are so many ways to go about establishing that that isn't cold emailing lists of venture funds.
Definitely. Yeah. And I've spoken to a handful of investors on this podcast, and I'd say probably almost all, if not all of them, all mention that they care the most about investing in the person, investing in the founder. And that above like the product or the mission is something that stands out most to them. So that's totally aligned with Scroobious, is just bringing people together on that human level, right?
Yeah, well, it's a risk reducer. So
Mhm.
any investor will tell you they operate from a place of risk assessment. Each investor has their own risk tolerance. Some like more risky bets, others want to play it pretty safe. There are different investment models based on those too, right? Some investors will do revenue-based financing rather than equity investment or a convertible note versus a safe. You see this kind of risk tolerance all over the place. And the CEO, the founder, is a huge element of that risk. You're going to pivot. Like your idea is going to change. The product is going to change. All of this stuff is going to change, but your ability to execute and whether I like you and believe in you, that's a huge risk I have to address right away because that's
Mhm.
you as a human. And that's not really going to change.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it reminds me of that whole idea of people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And so, really, that's at the core of it. If you feel like you know someone, you start to like them. If you like them, you start to trust them. And once you trust them, you're ready to give them your money.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Ashley. I talk about this a lot. There's a thing that we all carry with us. A bias is not always bad or uh, something that you even know you're doing. We all carry biases around with us, and a
Mhm.
huge one is familiarity bias, where we see things that are familiar to us or like us as less risky, and
Mhm.
things that are not familiar as not as likely to succeed or riskier because we don't understand it, it's not familiar. So it's a huge driving reason why there's a homogenous group who gets funded by venture capital. It's a homogenous group writing the checks. They see those people as less risky. They're like them. If you broaden who you know and develop relationships with who could potentially be funders or capital sources, you broaden your odds of who will find you familiar and who will find your business familiar. If you just keep going to the same place where they don't and you're trying to convince them, you're decreasing your odds of success.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great way to put it. And I feel like one of the best things too about Scroobius is that it gives people access to opportunity regardless of location. I think that's one difficult thing about tech is if people don't feel like they live in New York or if they don't live in San Francisco or they're not in DC, that they're limited, quote unquote, because of the fact that they're not in those main hubs. But Scroobius, because it's video first and virtual, gives that opportunity for people, regardless of where they live, to make those connections.
Totally. We're onboarding a partner right now who's building a space for their fund and accelerator in Birmingham,
Mhm.
Alabama, where there's actually a lot of people building an opportunity, but yeah, they receive very little venture capital because it mainly comes from the coastal cities. Yeah, you don't have to live in San Francisco, you don't have to live in Boston or New York to build something meaningful or have the ability to innovate. And of course, we can create connective infrastructure in a virtual format that lets you do what you just said, establish the right relationships.
Definitely. And as you've really alluded to, like community and relationships are huge for being able to get opportunities, to get funding, to meet the right customers, like the list goes on. But for people who are new to tech and might not have their community yet, or might not have many relationships yet, do you have any advice for them on how they can start to build up that network?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one, there's this myth or this thing that we're taught when we're newer entrepreneurs or not from this space, like you just said, where we should focus on only approaching people when we have a clear ask, right? And we wait until we need something. But then you're compressing all of that trust building into this moment of transaction, and it doesn't work that way, right? And a lot of times the people giving the advice don't even live by that. It's not the reality for them, but they're teaching it. And we take that guidance and then we wonder why it's not working. And we're sending all these emails and we're not, and it's not going anywhere. And it's because we didn't have the time we needed before the ask to
Mhm.
build that up. So it became a natural extension of a trusted relationship. So a huge piece of advice to founders, whether you're on a platform like Scroobious or not, is start reaching out to people before you need anything, before you have an ask, and you give first. You think like who you're reaching out to. So say you're building, in robotics, because Boston is having a robotics moment. And you really need to talk to someone who understands this particular like hardware you're looking at or something, or you just want to get someone's opinion on what you're building. Think about who would you want to talk to, whether they're an investor or not, who cares? You actually never know who is an investor. Uh, what would they find interesting about what you're doing? And
Mhm.
start there. Reach out to them and say, hey, I know you have a background in this. I'm building this brand new thing. We're right in the beginning. I'd so love to get your thoughts on this particular aspect. And I think you'll find what we're doing really cool. I have no other ask. And just get to know someone and get their feedback, and
Mhm.
see how you relate to each other. Do your vibes match? Do you enjoy it? And you'll naturally start up those relationships and you'll naturally grow the network you need so that when you do have an ask or you do need capital, you've already done that work. You've built it up. But you got to put that effort in way ahead of time and always with a give first attitude.
Love that perspective. And it makes me think of a follow-up question is that I personally feel like in the past few years, because of the rise of AI, people are almost more on guard when they receive LinkedIn messages from someone they don't know or emails from someone they don't know. And there was a stat I read the other day, and I forget the exact number, but how there's so much of a lower email response because of the fact that there's a rise in AI and people aren't trusting of things anymore. And so, a little bit of a niche question, but that's one thing I have for you is how can people get comfortable with that cold outreach or cold ask and find success with it without feeling like they'll get ignored or disregarded?
Yeah. Oh my, I mean, it sounds so simple to say, but like be yourself, be a human. Don't
Yeah.
use AI. With a lot of this, it's not a numbers game. It's
Mhm.
not a ratio of how many people you cold outreach to get the responses that you want. Yeah, you ignore it. I ignore most of what comes into me too. It's so clearly not targeted to me. And that's what the give first is. You spend a little more time researching specific people, but you get a way higher response rate because you mean it. It's authentic, right? You take a
Mhm.
little bit of time to say, who is this person? Why would they care about what I'm doing? Not just, hey, here's all my traction metrics and, we're raising this round and I see that you angel investor, you talk about it, and here's my deck. Or like, can we talk for
Yeah.
20 minutes, right? Don't do that. Offer something and make it clear that you wrote those sentences. It wasn't, most people have an issue with this. Like, don't know. What does that person have an issue with?
Great point. And like you said, it's obvious, but it's true. Just be yourself. And with that, I feel like another big thing of like once people start making these relationships, building their own network, sometimes it can feel difficult to actually like stay on top of those relationships and keep them nurtured and keep track of them all, especially if you're meeting so many new people all the time. Do you have any advice around that of just making sure that you're consistently nurturing these people and having them on your radar and not letting any slip through the cracks?
Uh, I am not the best one to give advice on that question. I am a terrible offender at this. I mean, there are platforms that are coming out to help with this. I have not used them personally. I've heard a lot of good things about Goodword as a way to help manage this type of thing. In Scroobious, we're building it more based again on that community environment. So it's easy
Mhm.
to find who you need at what time and to go back and see who's posting about what to select your interest. But it's a more network-minded approach than
Mhm.
the reminder of like, hey, you haven't talked to this person in 2 months. Maybe you should do that. I can tell you I leverage Claude Code heavily myself, and I've built some things to help with my own. But in general, if you form a good connection with someone, I mean, I have had hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of introductions and first calls where we really did feel that connection. And we can always go back to each other. You don't have to consistently nurture every relationship if you start from that place of trust and understanding. That's something that's called a loose connection, which is actually super valuable in your network. Is there's this person you had a good, interaction with, you understand each other, you were both give first, and you're all just kind of orbiting and you have this loose tether that you can pull at any time and you'll both respond.
Mhm.
And so that the constant nurturing is more kind of transaction focused again, right? Where you have a
Yeah.
thing you need and you're trying to get someone to respond or do something. Yeah, then follow up. That's in the moment. But otherwise, just maintain, have, just occasional interactions. When you think of someone, send them a note. Sometimes I'll do that. If someone pops in my head, I'll just send them a little email saying, hey, thought of you this morning. Hope you're doing okay. Uh,
Yeah, as
Valid
simple as
points.
that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great reminder. Is like it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. And to your point, you don't have to constantly be following up with these people because, as you shared, if you do have that trust built from the start, then it's not something you have to keep trying to work on or build towards.
Yeah, right. Like I give another example that comes to mind are my college roommates. We really don't talk very much, but we will always respond, right?
Mhm.
There's a connection, there's a depth there. And you have that in your professional life too.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think that's one of the best benefits about Scroobius is, as you mentioned, being network minded. So not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it sticks when it comes to building your network, but it's like very, very intentional, which I think at this point in time is huge for anyone who's building because the fact that time is limited. And so when you are part of a group or join an organization or join a platform, you want to make sure that it's something that's worth your time. And so I love that Scroobius really focuses on that.
Well, thank you. Me too.
And I know you've shared broadly some of the amazing things that have come from the platform, like, of course, people finding investors and whatnot. But if there's any specific examples of really great case studies you can share, I'd love to hear them.
Really great case studies. Oh my gosh. Well, we have a power user. I'll give you a great case study. We have one investor on the platform who I did not know. He joined the platform on the recommendation of somebody else, found me on my own platform and became one of my investors. He's an angel investor in my company. And has been enormously helpful. I mean, he is the definition of a value add, small check writer. It's been fantastic. And he's since invested, I think it's up to like 9 other people on the
Oh
platform
my
that he
gosh.
connects with. Yeah, it's incredible. And we've had founder to founder connections. We had two founders find each other on the platform who lived down the street from each other and didn't know that they were both entrepreneurs.
No way.
Yes, which was like crazy to me. We have little groups that have formed out of people meeting on the platform, and now they meet. I mean, there's so many different stories, but it's all about that engagement and feeling comfortable and meeting everybody as a person, not as someone across the table that you're trying to convince of something.
Hmm.
And I think that's another neat thing about the platform is we let people define who they are based on what they are right now. So I'm in the platform as a founder and an angel investor and an ecosystem builder and a mentor because I am all of those things. And a lot of people are multiple identities. And the platforms that make you like pick, like, well, which are you for now for this platform? You eliminate a lot of those potential connections and opportunities, and you eliminate the ability to help people become investors for the first time who are maybe curious about it but need the practice.
100%. And I love that you shared that because that's one of my big beliefs is that as humans, we're not meant to just hold one title or one identity. We're meant to have multiple passions and interests. And so I think it's really wonderful that you give people that opportunity to talk about all of the roles that they hold. And like you said, then it opens them up to more opportunities because they're able to share everything that they're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. We shift over time, and an operator can be an operator today and super helpful as an advisor or mentor, and then they can go join a startup or start one themselves, and now they're an entrepreneur. They need a whole different set of things than they needed before. And so yeah, your identity shifts, but you just have different needs in that time, and you need to connect with the right people so you have them in your room.
Totally. And as we get towards the second half of 2026, I'd love to hear what you're working on with Scroobious throughout the next 6 months. And if there's any fun plans or exciting things in development you can share with us.
Oh my gosh, so much. We just brought on our chief AI officer a couple months ago, and he has some super exciting things in the works for how the platform functions overall, but also how we do that behavioral matching and what we can do with the data that we intake to the platform to help people find each other. This is where, for me, utilizing AI and what's available to us today in a way that is inherently human oriented is very exciting. And it gives us the power to do things I couldn't have even imagined when I started the company. And so we've got a lot on that curation and exposure of why, the provenance element of it that is being developed right now. And then this spaces program that we have, this, B2B kind of walled garden offering, we have our first really flagship space coming online now. This is a relatively newer effort for us, and we have so much market demand. It is incredibly exciting and validating. And the concept of establishing these connections among and between affiliation networks is how we start to build a more connected ecosystem with greater options for access and capital than we have seen happening right now. And I know we're in one of those hubs in Boston. We're in one of the top three funding locations for venture, but it's still that 0.6% number for women. It's about the same for Black founders, for Black women. Oh my gosh, if you're an intersectional identity, we need this just as much as everybody else. And we actually tend to be double penalized because we're in a frothy city.
Mhm.
And so all of this just is on the near-term horizon for Scroobious, and longer term, building out our product in a really scalable way right now is super exciting.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am super excited for you, and I can't wait to continue to follow along and see everything that you roll out and continue to provide to people to support them through their journey as a founder or investor or community builder, whoever it might be.
Well, thank you very much. And I really appreciate you inviting me on and using your platform to bring this conversation to more people. I mean, that's a huge part of what I do is just public awareness and education and helping pull that curtain back from a very opaque landscape so that we can all innovate and the rest of
Mhm.
us can help further, what we bring to the world. So thank you for hosting me.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. And one last question to wrap things up, which is probably my favorite question to ask our guests. But I always love to have our guests give a shout out to someone in tech that they really admire right now. So it could be a founder, investor, community builder. Would love to hear who you're really feeling inspired by lately.
All right, I'm going to give a shout out to another local female founder. I am always really inspired by Amy Sperling, who is the founder and CEO of Compt. I think that she runs her business with such compassion and strategic diligence. It's very inspiring, and she's one of the few women in Boston to raise a significant sum of venture capital as well. But she does right by her people and does right by her business, and also works on policy and advocacy with me because she understands how intricately those things are linked. And she's someone I really look up to.
Love that. That's a great shout out. Allison, this has been such a fun episode, and I've so enjoyed having you on the show to talk about everything that you're doing with Scroobious. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to connect.
Absolutely. Well, you can find all the things on my website, AllisonByers.com, or I'm also very active on LinkedIn. You can always find me there. I post all the time about this stuff. And then the Scroobious newsletter goes out every Friday. I personally write about angel investing, fundraising, entrepreneurship, all the stuff we just talked about. So lots of ways to have me in your inbox.
Love that. And I'll make sure to include those places in the show notes for listeners to easily connect with you all from there. Thank you so much again for coming on today's show.
Awesome. Thank you so much.